All right, let's dive right in. Today we're looking at an ancient legal puzzle from the Talmud, and it's all about something pretty simple, a meal offering. But believe me, this story of flour and oil is going to open up a surprisingly deep world of sacred law and interpretation. So, here's our big question. How can just 3 drops of oil tell a whole story about ancient law? It sounds kind of strange, right? But you're about to see how this one simple ritual unpacks a super complex system of legal thinking. Let's treat it like a detective story, okay? We're following the clues left behind by ancient scholars to solve a kind of sacred mystery. Our investigation starts with the rule itself. Okay, so first things first, we have to understand the law at the very heart of this investigation. It comes from the Mishnah, which is basically the foundational written collection of Jewish oral traditions. And it gives us a really specific requirement for certain meal offerings, the ones prepared in a vessel. And that requirement? It all boils down to this one number, 3. For offerings made in a deep pan or a shallow pan, the law is crystal clear. You need exactly 3 distinct applications of oil. Not 2, not 4, it's gotta be 3. Now, here's the detail I find fascinating. The original text actually lists these steps in reverse order. But the procedure itself was very well understood. First, you'd put oil into the empty service vessel. Second, you'd add the fine flour and mix it all together with that oil. And finally, after the offering was cooked, you'd pour even more oil right over the top. The most important part? All 3 of these steps were totally mandatory. You know, whenever you have a rule that's this specific, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a debate about it. And that's exactly what happened. The question they got stuck on was a subtle one. What if the offering involves baked loaves instead of just raw flour? When exactly does the mixing happen? And here's where they disagreed. On one side, you have Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. He argued that you bake the loaves first, and then you break them up and mix them with oil. But the other sages said, nope, they insisted that the oil has to be mixed with the raw flour before anything goes into the oven. It seems like a tiny difference, but in the world of ritual law, it was a huge deal. It gets at a deeper question. Is the holiness in the raw ingredients or in the final finished product? And the debate didn't just stop with loaves. The text throws another curveball into the mix, a special case that adds another layer of complexity, wafers. And, well, their preparation was something else entirely. This is one of those details from an ancient text that just makes you go, whoa. Wafers weren't mixed with oil at all. They were smeared. And not just smeared any old way, but specifically in the shape of the Greek letter chi, an X. The level of precision in this ritual is just, well, it's astounding. So now our investigation goes a little deeper. The text itself almost starts acting like a detective, asking this really crucial question to figure out the exact limits of this 3-part oil rule. The Mishnah said the rule applies to offerings prepared in a vessel. So the later commentators writing in the Gemara really zeroed in on that specific phrase. They asked, okay, what is this meant to leave out? Is there some kind of offering that doesn't need these 3 anointings? And they found their answer, thanks to a sage named Rav Papa. He explained that the rule excludes the simple oven-baked meal offering, and the reason is pretty logical. Its preparation doesn't strictly require a special service vessel, in the same way a pan offering does. You just bake it in an oven. This is a major clue for us. That word, vessel, turns out to be the key to the whole thing. Okay, so we've got the rule, we've got the debates, and we've got the exception. But all of this leads to the final and maybe most important question. How did the sages know any of this? I mean, where in the Bible does it lay all this out? Well, the answer is in this brilliant method of reading the text. This is where the legal genius really comes out to play. They didn't have some verse that just said, you shall use 3 oils for pan offerings. Nope. Instead, they figured it out by connecting different parts of the text in a really clever way. They used a tool called a gezerah shavah, which basically means a verbal analogy. Think of it like a lawyer today finding the exact same unusual phrase in 2 different laws. They'd argue that since the language is identical, the legal ideas from one case should probably apply to the other. It's a way of letting the text interpret itself. So here's Exhibit A. This verse from Leviticus is about the deep pan offering. It explicitly says to make it in oil, which the sages understood as step 1, putting oil in the vessel first. Now pay very close attention to that phrase, your offering. And now for Exhibit D, talking about the shallow pan offering. This verse clearly mentions two of our steps, mixed with oil and pour oil upon it. And what do you see? The exact same key phrase, your offering. That's the link. That's the whole connection right there. When you lay the evidence out side by side like this, you get that aha moment. Seeing that identical phrase, your offering, applied to both the shallow pan and the deep pan offering is the big breakthrough. This shared language is the key the sages use to unlock the full meaning of the law for both of them. So here's the really brilliant part. This analogy works both ways. It's a two-way street. The deep pan offering, which only mentioned placing oil in the vessel, learns from the shallow pan verse that it also needs pouring and mixing. And at the same time, the shallow pan offering, which already mentioned pouring and mixing, learns from the deep pan verse that it also needs the oil placed in the vessel first. And just like that, through this elegant legal link, they prove that both offerings require all three anointings. And that brings our little investigation to a close. We started with just 3 drops of oil, and we uncovered this masterful display of textual interpretation. It kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? What does this intense need for precision, this search for meaning in every single word and every single ritual act, tell us about that fundamental human need to build a world that feels both coherent and sacred?